Hello, everybody, and welcome to this wonderful gathering today to celebrate innovation within the mindfulness sector. Thank you all so much for being here. We're absolutely delighted to have you with us. My name's Ruth Ormston. I'm co-director of the Mindfulness Initiative, which, for those of you who don't know, is a policy institute and think tank, or we like to think of ourselves as a think and do tank, which looks at the evidence base for mindfulness and compassion and maps it against particular public policy concerns. And part of expanding that evidence base for us in a good and solid way involves innovation and ensuring that we're expanding the communities that we're reaching with mindfulness practice in a way that still holds true to what mindfulness is, and doesn't move away from the evidence base, but still shows a level of creativity so that from its practice. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by the 4 finalists from our Innovations in Mindfulness Awards 2022, who all rose to that challenge amazingly, and have all got really different but brilliant projects between them. So we have Take Back Your Life, Radical Self-Care, Mindfulness-Based Inclusion Training, and BAM, which stands for Boxing and Mindfulness. And they all bring a level of skill, creativity and personal passion, which I'm really excited to be sharing with you today. I'm also delighted that we're joined by Vin Harris from the Hart Knowe Trust, who had the vision for and supported this Innovations in Mindfulness Awards, and I would say is an innovator in his own right in that respect. And Menka Sanghvi, a lead consultant who wrote the field book for mindfulness innovators, which I'll hold up. You probably can't see because it's a bit blurred, but if you go to our website, you can download that field book, and it's really intended to support the sector in developing innovative mindfulness interventions for people in a way that is creative, but stays within the core of what we know mindfulness to be. So just a couple of housekeeping points from me before we start. We are recording this event. So if you don't want to be on screen for any reason, please take your video off. After each video, I'll be fielding questions, so please pop your questions in the chat. We'll try and get through as many as we can, but apologies that we are on quite a tight time schedule. So if you have questions that don't get answered, we will share the finalist details with you after the event, so you can get in touch with them directly if you want to. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact Jamie Bristow, who'll give you a little wave, and who is basically much better at solving technical difficulties than I am. So he will help you in the event that anything goes wrong. And we're asking everybody to stay on mute if that's okay, unless you are speaking or participating. But before we start and actually kick off this event, I thought it'd be nice for us to actually practice a little mindfulness together. So we're just going to have a very short pause, and I'll just put myself on mute, and then I'll come back on to end it for everybody. Thank you, everybody. So I'm now handing over to Vin, who's going to tell you a bit more about the background to the awards and his involvement.
Thanks, Ruth. Hi, everyone. Well, this is what happened. After reading the field book that Ruth has just mentioned, I asked myself if there's a way that our charity, the Hart Knowe Trust, could help to encourage and support effective innovation in the field of mindfulness. For some time, I'd been concerned that although mindfulness has become well established, it was still not reaching many of the people who might really need it. Also, I felt there are many mindfulness teachers who are not yet finding a way to share their unique treasure with the world. I had an idea to create an award. It was a bit of a vague idea, but the idea was that we would celebrate and promote best practice in innovation in mindfulness. And during a series of conversations with Jamie, a plan emerged, and we'd a more definite plan emerged, and we decided to work together on this project. So first of all, I want to thank Jamie for being open to what at first might have seemed a slightly weird idea to have an award at a mindfulness competition. We put together a small team consisting of Ruth and Menka, myself, and with great admin support at different times from Pilar, Luke and Aileen, who work for the Mindfulness Initiative. It feels like we set out on a journey together, and on the way, we became friends. What more could you ask? So thanks to this great team who've consistently exceeded all expectations. Then we went public and we invited applications. And my biggest fear was that maybe it had been a big mistake and nobody would be interested. So I think that's what they call imposter syndrome, isn't it? But as it happens, we received about 40 applications, and each one of them had a really heartwarming story of compassion in action. So I want to thank all of the applicants for participating in that. And I hope that the process of applying and the feedback and suggestions that you received have been useful. We decided we wanted to have a panel of judges who were respected for their understanding of mindfulness and for their achievements in the field. So big thanks to Richard, Vijamala, Rohan, Kathy May. We're really grateful for the special contributions that you made to the success of the Innovation Awards. The films we're about to watch were created by the Awake Academy, and they really connected with the 4 finalists and took time to understand their projects. And I think this enabled them to make these very beautiful short films. So thanks to Gustav for creating a resource that's going to help the finalists to promote their innovative approaches to sharing the benefits of mindfulness. One of my heroes, Joseph Campbell, talks about taking notice of a heartfelt inspiration that we have from time to time. He calls it following your bliss. He says, if you do this, you begin to meet people who are in the field of your bliss, and they open doors to you. I say, follow your bliss and don't be afraid, and doors will open where you didn't know they were going to be. This resonates with my experience in general, and in particular with my involvement in this project. I just need to remember to trust it. So, thanks to the 4 finalists for their willingness to share their inspiring stories with us. And thanks to every one of you for being here. And I hope this event will really reveal new possibilities and maybe establish connections that flow from it, and that might open new doors for all of us. Now it's time to pass over to Menka to introduce the first video.
Thanks, Vin. So yeah, my name is Menka. I've been part of the team, as Vin says, developing this first ever awards for innovations in the mindfulness sector. Some of you watching today may not be aware of this, especially given how impressive the projects featured today are. But these awards were launched to celebrate early stage innovation. And by early stage, we mean projects that are much more than just an idea, but still at that stage where things are being rapidly developed, tested, and improved, which is one of the most exciting, but probably also one of the most vulnerable stages of any innovation journey, which is why we really wanted, with the awards and with these films, to honor the people on the innovation journeys, to celebrate what risk they've taken and what they've achieved, and to highlight their potential to offer even more to the world. Some of you may also be wondering how we selected these 4 projects as our finalists, and it's not a mystery. We've tried to be very transparent. Everyone involved in shortlisting and the final judging panel were all using the same 6 criteria. Today, as I introduce each of the 4 films, I'm not going to list the criteria, but I will share some of the ways in which these 4 projects have excelled against those criteria and brought them to life. So let's get started. The first film is about a project called Take Back Your Life. And here is a project that completely focused on the needs of the people that it serves. meeting their imagined needs or their assumed needs, which is an easy mistake that, we can all make with the best of intentions, but meeting the real needs. And it didn't seem as though this project was being done to the community or even for it, but rather with it. Even while watching the film, you might struggle to draw lines as to who's part of the core team and who's just a participant, which, we believe is one of its strengths. So we're about to start. Please take a moment to get comfortable. Consider putting your phone, upside down or into a drawer. Maximize your video screen and sit back and enjoy. It's been really fun trying to get these films created. Hard work, but really, really excited about the results and sharing it with you all today. If you have a question, then you're welcome to open the chat box and post that while the film is playing. And we'll start collating them to try and respond to as many as possible. If you don't have a question, you might want to just keep the chat box closed to avoid any distractions. So with that, let's watch the first film.
Living with pain is one of the worst things you can have.
My confidence has taken a step back as my pain has progressed and as my condition deteriorated and got worse.
I'm a sufferer of chronic pain myself. I have fibromyalgia.
Pain itself, it has a huge impact on your life, on people around you, people you live with, and the way you treat yourself and your pain has a huge impact on that level of pain.
So my name's Tereshri, or Tish, and I co-developed the Take Back Your Life project. As a young child, when I was 1, I was seriously ill and in an isolation ward. And I think that experience has always left me with this sort of theme of isolation in my life, being aware of people who are isolated, building bridges to them. Take Back Your Life, it really does that, and it really meets that in me, that ability to go to people who are suffering, in pain, isolated, and to bring them together and creating support networks. Some people with chronic pain living on their own or even living with families can feel so isolated. And I think what we do in Take Back Your Life is offer them a lifeline, offer them a support, let them know that they're not alone, give them techniques to manage their pain, but also just give them techniques to just have a happier life, a more connected life. What we offer is a mindfulness and pain management community program. So we really reach into the community. We try to reach hard to reach groups.
I was homeless, I lost my family, I lost completely everything. I was lots of medication, which for me to get up in the morning, I was having a nurse come in, sticking injections in my spine. So I'm in a better place now than I was a year ago. Through meditation, it's helped me with decision making. I had lots of fog in my brain. I couldn't focus. I couldn't make the correct decisions or a decision that would benefit me. My GP was over the moon, that very supportive, and said that medication for me isn't the answer. Your mind can help with a lot of my conditions. And he said it's not a cure, meditation. He said, but it gives you everything that you need, and then to get a good night's sleep, to get through your day, less pain. And so thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Rafaela Kat-Silverman. Because I'm in a lot of pain, because I'm physically disabled as well, and because there's no actual cure for what I have, because the damage is done throughout my body from the psoriatic arthritis, I wasn't sure how I would be with the people, because I never have a meal with people I don't know, because I have difficulty holding things. And I just feel, having done the course, it's given me a lot more self-confidence.
Hi, I'm Haley, and I am a Breathworks qualified mindfulness teacher. As a person who experiences chronic pain, I spent a lot of time trying to find anything that would help, that would cure me. Mindfulness isn't a cure, but what it has given me is it literally has given me my life back. I have joy. I have joy again.
Hi, I'm Shannon. I'm a researcher at Breathworks who's been supporting assessing the impact of the Take Back Your Life programme. Statistically, research shows that those on lower incomes are more likely to suffer with chronic pain and to develop chronic pain and chronic health conditions, but they're also more likely to also experience more severe symptoms with those and not be able to access the treatment. And what we found was that 80% of people manage their health or pain condition. We found that 84% of people felt less alone, and we found that nearly 3/4 of people reported enjoying their life more following the programme.
I was particularly interested in reaching women in the community, perhaps living on housing estates, not having a lot of English, suffering in pain. We wanted to share the Breathworks Mindfulness Health course with them. So we adapted it for people with lower language and literacy.
My name is Wilma.
I'm Kalpana.
And we know each other because I work in the GP surgery where you are a patient, right?
Yeah.
I work in the GP surgery alongside the GPs and lots of other people working there. And I connect people with any local support, any services or any activities, anything that can help people with their life and with their health and their well-being. And that's because often people come to the GP with lots of issues that the GP can't really help with.
Now I feel I'm really relaxed. My pain is gone. My shoulder pain is so much. Shoulder pain is gone. Yeah, in my chest I feel more better. This mindful give me more energy in my health. I'm so pleased because before I was so depressed, but now I'm feel more better.
You can pay lots for these courses, but you try to make it work for people that we see that come to the doctor because they have no other place to ask for help or to go to. They can't afford anything. And pain is often one of the reasons they've had to stop working, for example. They had to go on benefits. It is so invisible, so often they have to kind of fight for being heard and being seen. And then they come here and they are being heard and they are being seen without having to defend themselves. And that has a huge impact.
Thank you, everybody. So it's amazing because I've seen these videos so many times now, but every time I watch them, I feel as though I get something new from them. I just think they're all incredible. And yeah, just want to echo Vin's thanks to Gustave and York. So we have a couple of people from Take Back Your Life who are going to come on screen now. We've got Tereshri, Colin and Shannon. So welcome. Jamie is probably trying to locate you on a screen full of lots of people and to highlight you. Please do feel free to put any questions in the chat that you have for the Take Back Your Life team. So it's not just me. I mean, I have lots of questions, so don't worry. But if you have any, please feel free to put them in the chat so that we can ask those as well. Tereshri, I think Jamie's still hunting for you. So if you are able to give him a little wave, please do. But I'm going to kick off with a question for Shannon. So Shannon, there were some absolutely fantastic statistics in there. really high in terms of the percentage of people who were finding improvements from the course. And it'd be great if you could talk through, just for the benefit of people who might be starting out with new projects or innovation, how you set about gathering that information, whether you started at the beginning or it was something that slowly emerged as the project was evolving.
Thank you, Ruth. That was, yeah, very good question. It's always good to be able to show the impact of these things, and often it's something people only think about towards the end of projects. So we actually did it with 2 questionnaires, a pre-course questionnaire and a post-course questionnaire. In the pre-course questionnaire, we had some scales that are well known in sort of the academic literature, or the sort of scales that GPs, surgeries would use. So we looked at pain catastrophizing, pain interference, and self-efficacy. So basically your confidence to do things despite pain. And we did those at pre and post, so we can get a nice score before and after and kind of have that nice scientific measurement. But what we also found is that, similar to Tish having to Tereshri, kind of adapting the content of the course, we did over time have to adapt the questionnaire. So we found that certain scales weren't totally accessible to people who don't have English as a first language. So we also introduced some questions just in that post-course questionnaire that were very simple, to the point, you know, things like, do you enjoy your life more? Do you feel more connected, with the options of like, yes, no, not sure. Yeah, we used a combination, and it was a learn as you go kind of experience.
Great. Yeah, so adapting as you go along, adapting the evidence that you're collecting as well. Brilliant. Tereshri, welcome. Thank you very much for coming, and yeah, for everything you've done for this project, which is amazing. You mentioned in the video you really wanting to access hard to reach communities. And I love the fact that that was your kind of, I want to get to people who aren't normally being kind of sought out. How did you go about that? Where did you start?
Yes, so we went, who's a Bangladeshi man, and he gave us some ideas. He said, go into school coffee mornings. That was a really good idea, to go to places where people are already there. So we went out to community. We actually literally, can I just mention Kalyana Vacha, who co-developed with me? She also had the idea at the same time as me. She's in the audience. And we went and saw him. We went out to community centres. So we literally went and found people. We reached in and kind of pulled them out from places where they already go and feel comfortable.
Great, thank you. I'm just looking at some of the questions that are coming through as well, so I'm not hogging it too much. And one of them is this a new version of MBSR? So how could you talk a little bit about how the course is structured?
It's an adaptation of the Vijayamala's Breathworks Mindfulness for Health. So basically we changed it from an 8-week course to a 5-week course, 2.5 hours, because with follow on, so where people keep coming for 6 months or a year, because we felt that people would not sign up to something they didn't know for 10 weeks. And actually the NHS tried to do a mindfulness course like ours at the same time and did it for 10 or 12 weeks, but people would not sign up, so it became drop-in. So I think that was quite a good decision to go for 5 weeks to just try and capture people. So yeah, so it's an adaptation. It uses puppetry, it uses visuals, it uses ESOL techniques, English as second language techniques. So it's the same course, but it just is adapted.
Great.
Sorry.
That's okay. And another question that's coming in through the chat. What have you found the most challenging?
Sometimes it's been really challenging to recruit people, but we have Wilma Bowl, a social prescriber. She was in the film, and once we got the social prescribers and the NHS on board, things got a lot easier, but recruitment's been quite challenging. And the course is quite hard, it's quite hard setting up the equipment, and yeah, I think that's quite hard. So you need quite a big team. You can't just do it with one person. Yeah, I think they're the most challenging. Kalyana, you might want to put something in the chat if you think of anything. Or Hayley.
And Colin, I'm just going to come to you and ask where Breathworks kind of came in as part of this process and what your involvement's been in it.
Sure. So we've been endeavouring to support Tish. So Tish has been the Kalyan Abacha have been the pioneers who've been taking this out into the new community. So we've been trying to give them all the support we can, really, to we're kind of following in your footsteps. So we're running a similar series of courses in Manchester in three particularly deprived sub areas in Manchester, starting next week. In fact, Andrea, our trainer, is here today, is going to be leading those. So we're endeavouring to make it. So one of our aims is to make accessible forms of mindfulness teaching available to the communities who most need them, and to address barriers, including financial. So similarly, we're working with the social prescribing teams in Greater Manchester to make it available. So yeah, dissemination, support
Great.
and dissemination.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, all of you, for completely inspiring work. There have been quite a few questions in the chat about whether or not this is an ongoing offering, whether or not it's free. And I just say to everybody on this video, please check them out. We will be circulating details of all of the finalists afterwards. So go and find out more about them and what they do, because it's all absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to pass back to Menka now. So thank you.
Thank you. I feel like you have the best job. I just get to say what we really loved about, or one of the things we really loved about each project. The second film we're going to be showcasing is the runner-up project of the awards, a project called Mindfulness-Based Inclusion Training, MBIT, created by Urban Mindfulness. Of their many strengths, the one I want to highlight.
Clear him a bit.
You can hear something in the background.
I'm going to take it off.
Yeah, what I want to highlight to all of you is that this project is very much about systemic change, which requires an openness and a collaborative approach to learning. And even though what they are doing is radically different to conventional mindfulness training programs, the founders have made huge efforts to take others with them, very much connected to other mindfulness organizations. There's an exchange of learnings happening. And so that was one of our criteria, collaboration and learning from others in the sector. And the beauty of this is, of course, that anything that this group achieves is not going to just benefit them, but we're all going to benefit. There's going to be positive ripple effects throughout the sector, for which we're very grateful. And with that thought, please sit back and enjoy.
No matter how we try to dance around it, the reality of 300-400 years of slavery has fractured our community in many different ways. And I think that at the heart of this project was about bringing together our people in a space of solidarity, wounds of fracturing, and how can we bring a sense of unity to the global majority within our community.
What's the message of mindfulness that's going out there? Who is welcome to come? Who are the teachers in the room? So it felt like this needed to be addressed. Dealing with people's identities and acceptance feels really important. A sense of belonging feels important in the room. And there was an awareness that was growing that not everyone feels that sense of belonging. Whilst their bodies are welcome, maybe part of their journeys perhaps isn't.
So there was a part of this that was about looking at the external systemic issues and thinking, okay, how can we move forward together to address those systemic issues and deal with the daily grind of discrimination, microaggression, but not in an antagonistic way, in a way that was rooted and grounded in a sense of love for humanity and the community. So my name's Dean Francis. I'm a co-founder of the Urban Mindfulness Foundation and the Mindfulness-Based Inclusion Training Program that we've co-created, really about for the outreach or in-reach to the Black and people of colour community with something that really resonates with them.
My name is Aisha Francis. I'm one of the co-founders of the Urban Mindfulness Foundation, based in Newham, East London.
Mindfulness is an element of the program, and it allows a sense of groundedness. I think it cultivates a sense of being able to see the psychological processes of perhaps where we get trapped. But at the heart of this, it's about creating courageous, critical thinkers, grounded in compassion and purpose.
For me, this project is really about bringing mindfulness practice into real life and really meeting people where they are. The real sense of inclusion is really about, understanding or asking the questions, where is our mindfulness practice maybe taking us? What are we including in our mindfulness practice? So part of that would be, has certainly been motivated by this idea of JEDI, justice, equity, diversity and inclusion. One of the biggest issues, I believe, for mindfulness practice, certainly within the Black and people of colour community, especially here in the UK, from my own lived experience and also for others, is the importance of psychological safety. Participants are invited into a space, we want to diversify mindfulness. That's been recognised more recently, but it's how that's done. So 3 key points for me, certainly within MBIT training, is cultural awareness, social awareness, as well as emotional awareness.
One of the fundamental things that have come out of this is by blending Western concepts and philosophy with African concepts and philosophy, there is a real sense of upskilling and providing the narrative and the language for people to explain their lived experience and what it is to be a person of color in a Western culture. So initially we're like, anyone just come in and just let's, have a real sense of oneness, which is important to do. But I realized that then kind of bypassed the real lived struggle that Black and people of colour face. I think very early on after our teacher training, and I had this idea of I'm a mindfulness teacher, what happened was I went into autopilot. So I had the curriculum, I learnt the curriculum, I understood the curriculum, and I just delivered the curriculum. And that missed authenticity. So I thought, no more assimilation, no more acculturation, no more perpetuation. This is about authenticity.
My name is Dr. Carlis Douglas. Mindfulness is not just about a particular religious background, but that actually those ideas and those practices actually appear in many other backgrounds. And so for me, it was useful because I'm from a Christian background, and it was really useful to be able to find where contemplation and centering prayer and things like that actually are present. So that's the way in which the course has actually influenced me personally.
Well, my name's Azaria Sanusi. In this course, it felt like the central thing was us turning up and being ourselves. And it was about using mindfulness to support us and to support our practice, our growth, our community building, as opposed to us being on the periphery, which is where we often experience ourselves. So I loved the fact that it was a course where I could just turn up and be myself. I came and my hair wasn't even done. I was in bed and I could join from my bed, from my bedroom, and actually just feel alive and feel like I was having the best time and be so glad that I showed up and feel, that I could feel accepted just how I was. I'm 29 and I feel like this is probably one of the first times that I've experienced that.
My name is Lola Bloom. I would say the practices of urban mindfulness has helped me in my personal life deal with my own struggles with inequality and injustice. And I thought that's what led me, inspired me to look for a space like urban mindfulness in the first place.
My name is Teresa Joseph. Through the program, I understood, like, I am because we are, which is a Ubuntu. I am standing here because of the people in my past. Again, you're living in today and actually having full presence of what somebody else has put in place for you to stand here today, including you. Your contributions of what you did yesterday is what enables you to stand in today. Having an understanding of these concepts that we were shown helped me to be directional and instruct myself to be focused and think, you know what, if I was in a situation, I would remember where I've come from. I remember the wisdom in who I'm standing in today.
The diversity of mindfulness is its beauty.
Thank you, Urban Mindfulness Foundation, for your project film. And can I ask Dean and Aisha to come on and join me for the Q&A? Jamie will be looking for you wherever you are. And just while you're joining me, I'm just really struck in all these films by the power of the language people are using. You know, people saying they're feeling alive as a result of coming on your course. It's just incredible. It's amazing. So I just wanted to recognise that and say thank you. So welcome to both of you. As before, please put questions in the chat, everybody, so it's not just me. But I would like to start by asking a question around authenticity, because I love the way that you both speak about this. And Dean, when you talk about being a mindfulness teacher on autopilot, I just think that's really interesting. And I'd love it if you could say a little bit more about that and how you kind of came to a realization that you were on autopilot.
Hi there, Ruth. And yeah, thanks. Good question. It's interesting when you watch back the video, I think, did I say that correctly? But yeah, I think I did. And really where I was coming from with that is authenticity. I learned that, like I said in the video, I learned the curriculum and I was really restricted by what I could share about what my own lived experience. And I was told, you know, you have to stick to the curriculum. If you make any changes, if you do anything, you have to change the name of the course you deliver and all sorts of things. So we were really kind of forced into finding a way to be authentic and bring in our cultural wisdom, our cultural knowledge, with a real authenticity. And that's how we came about, okay, it was great to deliver the curriculum as it was, but it needed more, particularly in terms of the communities we were trying to reach. Yeah, and that's where the sense of authenticity came in, really.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. And Aisha, I think as well, you spoke about this, the importance of psychological safety, and Dean touched on it as well with this idea of, you know, initially saying, oh, everybody welcome in, and then realizing, no, actually, we need to create something different here. And there is that element of risk taking there, quite a huge risk within the sector. How did that feel, and how did you kind of navigate through it? What was your process?
Yeah, really fascinating process, actually. Psychological safety is key to getting people to feel connected, that sense of trust. And I think to come across authentic and really kind of like delve into where that challenge can really be was to go through our own lived experience. You know, we've done a lot of training, appreciated so much training, but sometimes felt a little bit excluded, a bit like what one of the participants referred to, feeling like we're on the periphery. So actually getting a sense of that and saying, okay, how can we really address this in a way that's not, we're not trying to name or shame and blame anyone. This is a structural thing that we're recognizing here. How do we start to break down these structural barriers that actually prevent people from connecting with their own lives and perhaps also with others? So really inviting a sense of community of practice, allowing people to come into a space and validating that they have wisdom, regardless of where they are in their life, how they are in their life. You have wisdom. You know, you're here, you're alive. What can you share? Are you up for sharing? So that sense of psychological safety that validates lived experience feels like it's a vital ingredient to trust building, enable people to open up, maybe explore, be curious, etc. It's up to them what they share. No one's forced to share anything personal specifically, but what we soon find is people are willing to share their story, and just hearing people's livening for all of us, we can learn so much from each other. So psychological safety is key. We come from our own lived experience. We admit that none of us are perfect, but also, embrace the imperfection of others as well. That's part of our diversity, and we can learn and grow with each other. So it felt really, really important aspect.
Yeah, thank you. Just looking at what questions I've come up that aren't mine. Okay, what's been your biggest challenge to scaling up this program and growing it?
Do you want to come in?
I think, the challenges are ongoing with that, actually, Ruth. And one of the things is a misunderstanding of, when we're working with the system, we're also working with the inner selves as well. I think there's this saying that there can be no outer change without inner change, and without inner change, no change matters, and that kind of thing. So it's a both and scenario, really. Yeah, my sense is that challenging some of the foundational ideas that are in mindfulness and bringing a new perspective has always been a challenge, and that we've come up against a lot of resistance. And naturally it's very different in the sense of, what are we doing here? Why are we looking out there when there's all this work inside to do, when not really seeing them as both one and the same thing. So I think what's been a major challenge is really this dichotomous view that it's either out there and systemic work or inner work, and bringing in a both and a reality that we are what we see on the outside, and we create the outside by working with what's inside. And I think that's been a big challenge in the field of mindfulness, actually. There are also issues of relatability and context, and that's why we really brought in the African concepts of Ubuntu, Umoja, Ubele, and Sankofa, because that was about connecting with the people that we were trying to reach and making it context and specific and relational. Yeah, I think. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think maybe in regards to like scaling up, I guess because it's so embedded in a lived experience, it's also interesting how we now grow the team. When more and more people want to do this, how do we now expand? So a lot of it has been about Dean and I delivering this, but at the same time working with other organizations. We are so up for collaboration. That's what diversity is, each other's experiences. So that has also been interesting in bringing in different artists to also come and enrich a program. People relate through different ways, sometimes music, sometimes story, sound even. So scaling up is still something we're working on, but certainly involves a lot of support from others as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Dean, we've had a question in the chat about could you elaborate more on some of the concepts that you mentioned? And I realise it's not going to be possible in the 3 minutes that we've got left, but you mentioned Ubuntu, and I know it's talked about in the video, but could you just expand on that a little bit for people who aren't familiar with it?
Yeah, well, the African concept of Ubuntu, it's a South African concept, if you like, from the Zulu tradition, and it says, I am because we are. Or a person is a person only through other persons. And that really moves towards that sense of non-duality and emptiness, or, which we would commonly speak about perhaps in mindfulness, in the mindfulness field. One that's more challenging, I'll drop in this as well, is Sankofa. I love this one because it feels so important. And most people might be aware when, the late Thich Nhat Hanh talks about, can you see the cloud in my tea? What Thich Nhat Hanh is inviting us to do is see the full wonder and awe of that tea and its history. And Sankofa is about seeing the history or the history within the present moment. So when Thich Nhat Hanh says, "Can you see the cloud in my tea?" what he's asking us to do in an African perspective is to sankofa. So you can open up to wonder and awe and, the history of the present moment, which is very, very challenging for the mindfulness world, because, we think about the present moment as being isolated from the past or from the future. And actually, the present moment includes everything, what we've come with and what we're going to be. And really, Sankofa invites us to do that. Acknowledge that and open up to the wonder of who we are as individuals, beings, but also as a collective.
Yeah, so much goes into the present moment. It's not as simple as it.
It's not just empty of everything else, and that's a historical cultural wisdom that kind of grated against the present moment, what it's become. So we just try and challenge that. But again, it's not a case of, it's just offering, not even challenging, it's offering another perspective.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely love the work that you're doing, to look at it and to look at that perspective. And also, I guess I just want to finish on saying that some of the talking about is really, really difficult. And you acknowledge that in the video, but the care and the love and the compassion that you both bring to it is just inspirational. So thank you both. And thank you for being here. And I'm going back to Menka now on my strict time schedule.
Amazing. Thank you. So film number 3, we're going to watch a film about the winners of the 2022 awards, a project called Boxing and Mindfulness, BAM, by a company called Mindful Peak Performance. Their process of combining mindfulness with something as physical and intense as boxing, possibly for the first time in mainstream mindfulness programs, it's required a creativity and a risk-taking, a reframing of what mindfulness is about, who it's for, and how it can be taught. It's been edited out from this final version of the film, but in an earlier version, there was a scene with a pool of blood in the middle of the young people talking about their stress, their anger, and finding tools in the mindfulness practice to be able to become more aware of that and to be more responsive rather than reactive. I mean, it's a very bold innovation, and thankfully one that is reaping rewards for many vulnerable young people, especially young carers who can sign up for free. And very, very, very thankful to Luke and his team for the work they're doing. So with that, please sit back and enjoy, and don't forget to pop any questions you might have that come up while you're watching into the chat box.
So one of my initial inspirations was working in a school teaching meditation, and a young person came up to me and said, "How is this going to help me if I've got somebody putting pressure on me to stab somebody?" And I didn't really have an answer. I was a bit like, yeah, okay. I need to think about this. And then this idea of boxing meditation started forming, and this idea of bringing meditation into boxing environments where young people feel safe to express themselves and bringing in this more sensitive element into those environments. That inspired me, and thought that, maybe this is a way that young people who are in those very challenging situations that I can't relate to, this might be a way that they can start understanding mindfulness and developing the seeds to start making choices around some of these really challenging scenarios. My name is Luke Doherty. I'm the founder of Mindful Peak Performance. I lead the meditation part of this program, and I work with boxing coaches who are also boxing coaches to combine boxing and meditation programs. So the program starts with a theme. So it might be how to work with distractions, how to work with pressure. When your mind wanders off and you start thinking about what am I going to have for lunch, someone that's annoyed you, hands up if you've ever had a time where you go to bed and your mind's just going, yeah. And a meditation practice. And then we go into a period of boxing. So we then release energy. So we've calmed the mind a bit in the first phase. Then we release physical emotions, we release vigorously through the boxing, and then we go into a second meditation practice, use the endorphin release from the boxing and allow people to connect in a more embodied way with the meditation practice, and then we review at the end and inquire and give people a way to kind of connect to what's happened in the session.
Well, at first I didn't really believe in the meditation, and then I got reintroduced to it around June time, and then I made the connection between meditation and boxing and how it helps you focus in the ring while you're boxing, where your training helps you get into a flow state and you're more present and you're more aware of your body and your feelings. You're more aware of your emotions, but you control them better. But the important thing is you're more aware of it, and it's more like you're interested in why you feel that way rather than let it control what you do.
When I've been in hard times in my life, mentally I've not been there, especially during COVID. That was a hard time in a lot of people's lives. I would encourage a lot of young people, if they're feeling stressed out, anything like that, just go through meditation, do some therapy on your mind, because it's really important. It's very underrated. A lot of young people should definitely do it.
It builds your character, so then when you're in those difficult situations where you're thinking, should I go and do something a bit silly with some people, you think no, you have more control over yourself. It gives you that sense of you know your own decisions. I'll be real, when I was younger, I had a short fuse. I would get little things would irritate me, I would get angry, I'll have outbursts and stuff.
Boxing, meditation and mindfulness has helped me massively, not only in my personal life, but also my boxing life. You know, in my personal life, issues come up, things are thrown at you, it can be hectic, gives you time to reflect, stay calm so you don't react to things immediately and with anger.
Hello guys, my name's Umar, the head coach and the founder of the East London Boxing Academy, and been doing a lot of mindfulness work alongside boxing. It's quite an innovative idea, to be honest. When it was presented to me by Luke from Mindfulness, I absolutely jumped on it, because when we started working with the boxing, it's absolutely helped young men and women on the periphery of antisocial behaviour, living in. You can imagine what goes on with the young people and what's going on in our society at the minute, and it's absolutely helped a number of them get away who were in the periphery and now who have become on to go national champions, regional champions, and I'm a big advocate.
My initial confidence comes because this worked for me. I struggled to meditate without that physical release, without that connection to my body, to deal with things like anger, sadness, emotions that come up. The physical release is really important. So when I combine the two together, it creates a kind of wholeness, a wholesome feeling inside myself. So that was an initial motivation. And testing it with young people has been really powerful, because I've seen it change young people's lives. I've seen people that are on the verge of killing themselves give me feedback through youth workers that it was one of the only things that made them feel safe. So we're allowing young people to gradually and slowly learn to understand their feelings and their emotions, and that's powerful. I just feel that it's unrealistic to think that if you've got loads of energy, you're a young person, that you're going to sit still and take meditation seriously. Now, a lot of young people do, but if you've got mental health issues, if you've got a lot of things going on in your life, it's not, there needs to be new ways of helping young people to engage with meditation. I think this physical mental combination, the boxing and mindfulness juxtaposition, really provides a kind of new image, a new way of mindfulness being presented and taught. So we tried boxing and mindfulness with lots of different groups: young people at risk of serious youth violence, young carers, people with learning disabilities, older people. So my hope for this is that we can use this over the next few years to target specifically vulnerable groups of people, but eventually make this a UK-wide, even global movement of a new way of looking after your mental and physical health.
Thank you, Mindful Peak Performance. And while we're getting Luke and Matthew on for the questions and answers, just a reminder to please keep putting questions in the chat and I'll get through as many as I can. And to give a shout out to Gustavo, who wrote the very funky music for that video.
Yeah, that's great.
wasn't part of his brief to also write the music, but we have it. So thank you, Gustavo. Okay, Luke and Matthew, hopefully you're coming on. Hey, Luke.
Hey.
So I'm going to start with a question, which is boxing and mindfulness, not two things you would naturally put together. And I was wondering if when you were putting together the concept, you came up against resistance from either field in terms of questioning putting these two things together.
It did seem a little bit bonkers at times when we first tried it out, but to be quite honest, no, we've just been very kind of focused. As soon as I met the founder of the East London Boxing Academy, he was like, he just got it. We just had this conversation, he got it, and then we just ran with it. And it was just like, it just made total sense to me intuitively. And then the young people that went through the first course also got it. And three years later, we interviewed them, and they told us these amazing stories about how it had changed, you know, elements of their life when they'd felt stress. Like 6 months later, the seeds of meditation had actually stayed with them. So we've not really met much resistance because we've been really focused. And I think because it naturally feels just so organic to me to have this physical and mental thing together, it's like, it just feels very commonsensical that it works. So because that's been so clear, I don't think I've really entertained any kind of views that it's not, doesn't fit within the field of mindfulness or in the field of boxing. It just works.
Can you remember the first group that you kind of presented it to as an idea of this is what we're going to do? How did you...
Well, actually, there was a pre-group before we even got funding. It was a bit risky. So we went out to, remember, Matt, we went to Leighton. We went to an estate in Leighton that had a community centre. And there was a group of 5 or 6 young people out sort of messing around next to the centre. And we got let in. This is before we got funding. This was like a pre-pilot. And we just said to them, do you want to give this approach a go? And they were kind of joking around with us and messing about, and it was a little bit, it was quite interesting. They did it, and I just remember their eyes at the end, just like sparking, and just being like, I was really nervous. I didn't think they'd take it seriously, but I could see the spark in their eyes, and they were hungry for more, and they didn't quite know why. They just felt more connected. So that was even before we did the first proper course. We just went out and did this kind of outreach youth. We just spoke to some young people and just did it. So yeah, that was the first experience.
Wow. And Matthew, could you maybe say a little bit about how the course is structured, what it consists of for people, just so they've got an idea?
Yeah, sorry, I've got a really bad cold, so you'll have to...
Don't worry, you're in good company.
Well, we've adapted an MBSR course, and it's a 6-week course. But Luke can probably say more about the actual content, what we focus on. But we've adapted it for different groups of vulnerable young people. Do you want to say more, Luke?
Yeah, I guess the structure is based on similar principles to the MBSR course. But I think what's really key about it is the inquiry bit at the end, like with all mindfulness training, getting people to get it in their own experience. So we might be talking about automatic pilot and focus in one session, but it's really creating that atmosphere where people can really bring their own life experiences into it and actually get it. So we give a lot of space to that element of the social element and creating an environment where at the end of it, there's time to kind of properly do inquiry and do that with the young people. And actually a lot we're developing all the time, because we also use that space to pick up new themes. So themes that, you know, we're trying to create new themes because we do a course, but we also do after school clubs. So to bring in new kind of themes for ongoing content. So we're trying to really let the young people shape what we do, and that's always evolving. So I think we're in a bit of a phase now where we're creating a new iteration based on what's been kind of working and what young people have been saying and what's the language we use around compassion. And yeah, we're in a quite experimental phase of changing the content and the language, I guess.
Yeah, I really resonated with what you said about it being this kind of exciting but slightly vulnerable period at the start, and we're sort of still finding our way. I mean, I think that co-production was always something that we realized we had to do in a sense, even before we realized that that's the word, co-production. You know, we were sort of already doing it, kind of actually just trying to have conversations with people and really sort of find new ways of talking about it. And that's, you know, and so as Luke has been saying, quite a lot of the courses, we've got our little mind in our minds, a sort of basic structure, but we're really looking out for what's working for other people. How can we adapt this? What are the key themes that are actually they're bringing to us? And then we're sort of thinking, you know, how can we apply what we know to this? So yeah, it still feels like it's very much in development, I think.
Yeah, great. I'm going to move on to a couple of questions that we've had through the chat. You mentioned funding, Luke, and people are interested in how the project is funded.
Yeah, so we're a CIC, so we also work with elite athletes and business leaders teaching mindfulness. So profits from that area feed into our kind of BAM projects. But Matt does a lot of work fundraising, so we apply for grants. Matt, you might want to say, you know, the Mayor of London, the Home Office, all sorts of trusts and foundations have given us money over the years. I mean, if whoever was writing that is wanting to give us some money, that's absolutely welcome as well. We're looking to always expand. But yeah, it's a combination, but mainly grant funding.
Yeah, great, thank you. And you talked about this co-production and co-creation, which I absolutely love. The case that you kind of work with a particular group of people who are doing a boxing course, or do you recruit people specifically, and do people opt out and say, no thanks, that's not for me?
In terms of giving feedback on the course,
in terms of actually taking part in BAM, is it kind of voluntary subscription when you
totally voluntary? Yeah, these are free courses, fully funded, and registrations and referrals come from schools, pupil referral units, young carers projects, and they come from lots of different places. But it's people choosing, young people choosing to do this.
Great, that's really important. And I've had a couple of questions on whether or not you work with women.
Well, actually, our lead boxing coach is a woman, and we are looking to diversify to specific female-only sessions, but we've got to be realistic. We've got our strategic priorities over the next couple of years, but eventually we do want to do more specific work, including that, yeah.
Great. Just checking that I've got all the questions from here. Do people practice outside the training sessions, and what does the practice you suggest?
Yeah, well, we've created mini BAM home workout videos. So every week has a home practice, which is a 10-minute BAM video on a specific theme that we've taught on that session. And then we encourage home practice to go in that way. So it's not the home practices are mini BAM sessions, home videos. And then when they come back the next week, we review that and see how people have got on.
I'm just going to share the link to that, to our one page of our little home workout videos to the chat. So if anyone wants to see it or even do it, they're more than welcome.
Fantastic. Everybody can do that this evening. Check out one of the practices. So I guess the final question from me, it's quite a big one, but what advice would you have to anybody who found themselves in a similar situation to you, where somebody asked a question and they thought there is a need here, but I don't quite have the answer? What did you go off and do? What do you think was kind of fundamental in getting you to where you got to?
I think it's take notice of those moments where things move you deeply and you don't have a response. Don't ignore those moments, because often they're the moments that can send you in directions. So yeah, don't make a quick answer, and don't lose sight of those moments where you get moved deeply by something.
Yeah, fantastic. And we are incredibly pleased, as are, I'm sure, many, many young people, that you didn't ignore that moment, Luke, and that pay attention to the fact that there was no immediate answer, and that you've gone and developed this amazing initiative.
Yeah, and also without the support of Matt, without me having that inspiration, without the support of Matt, and also Danielle, who's on the call, and been contributing, it wouldn't have gone anywhere. So I just feel very grateful. So thank you. And thank you to the Mindfulness Initiative and everyone involved.
Yeah, thank you both very much. And as I said, we'll be sharing more information on all of these projects, because I'm sure you will have lots more questions and want to get in touch and follow what they're doing. But for now, I'm going to pass back to Menka. So thank you, Luke and Matthew.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So we're on to our last film. Time has gone by really quickly. The last film is about a project called Radical Self-Care by Rainbow Mind. The project's core strength is in diversity, inclusion, and accessibility, which was one of our 6 criteria, in a way that's ended up being a theme throughout all of these finalist projects. But you'll see in this film why this project really shines in this area. The way that the adaptation has been done, it runs very deep to not just include self-care, but to start with it and to make it its kind of core practice in order to respond to the needs of the people that the project is serving. So on to the last film.
I think after several years of working at Mind, we realized that one of the key issues or challenges was that the lived experiences of people from different identities and different communities that we work for and part of wasn't fully understood or represented. Looking at mindfulness as a whole, we weren't seeing everybody there in the picture. We weren't seeing the lived experiences of people from all different races, ages, classes, abilities, and in particular, people of color, people from LGBTQ+ communities. We weren't seeing full and open welcoming of those identities, also in particular of the richness of those identities. So there's the acknowledgement that it can be tough sometimes. There are challenges that come with holding an identity of being a person of color or being from an LGBTQ+ community, but there is such a wealth, there is such a richness, there is so much to celebrate, and how can we bring that in? I'm Afsal, and I'm the lead trainer in the Radical Self-Care modality. Radical Self-Care, it's about tapping into the innate capacities that we have for awareness, which is what mindfulness is about, the awareness of our experience in the present moment, and for self-care, for kindness, for compassion. These are things that we're not necessarily encouraged to do, educated to do, socialized to do. So this is why we wanted to put this program together, where we are cultivating these really key, important capacities. That awareness of intersectional sensitivity, all of these things are riven through this program. I'm Mia Chambers. I'm Director of Rainbow Mind and Mindfulness Lead at City Hackney Waltham Forest Mind. The course, for me, it has shifted my relationship to myself. It's shifted the way in which I meet my own pain and struggles in life. In terms of the tone with which I meet myself, that has become more accepting. And I think that we have heard in our evaluations that this has been the case for pretty much everyone who has taken part, that somehow that noticing of the way they relate to themselves has shifted.
I'm Brendan Lucia, and I'm a therapist. I think the biggest value of RadSec to me, myself, has been around being a better friend to myself. I think as a therapist in my practice, one of the things that I really value from RadSec is around present moment awareness. I think the more that I'm able to be really present in the space from moment to moment, the more I'm able to see my clients and respond authentically to where they are. And I think particularly in my work with men, I think there's a really desperate need in a lot of men for some self-love and some self-compassion. And it's very hard for them to access. And RadSec offers a really accessible route to begin that process, which I think a lot of men need.
My name is Marita Ludlam, and I'm a sessional mindfulness facilitator. I think the practices, the RadSec practices, have really enabled me to be more gentle and kinder with myself, and also to notice when I'm giving myself a really hard time.
I'm Bindi, and I work for the Recovery College. One of the things that I've really enjoyed since being a participant on the course is it's my waking moments. It's having the 5 mindful breaths as I wake in the morning, and really taking that time to just luxuriate, to come into my senses, before I think about moving, getting out of bed, before I think about my to-do list. It's just really lovely.
My name is Nora. I am assistant psychologist for the NHS. And I'm also a recovery worker in Turning Point, which is a substance misuse organisation. We're so hardwired to believe that putting ourselves first is selfish or is too individualist. There is so much certain clinical populations that I can see RADSEC having. I'm already involved with it in the substance misuse population, and watching it work its magic has just been so remarkable, because this population often has a very pronounced sense of shame and can be really hard on themselves. And, we meet every Friday afternoon, and people can just really be themselves. Well, I get the sense they can be themselves in a way that they can't elsewhere. And then in my work in the NHS, which is around perinatal mental health, once again, we've got so many mothers that are really struggling with a sense of shame, a sense of not being good enough. And RADSEC really does focus on these kind of core beliefs in a really simple and compassionate way, which again makes it so accessible for people and so powerful.
If I could describe RADSEC in 3 words, I think I'd say needed, compassion, embodied.
Friendliness to self.
A moment by moment inquiry, acceptance and self-care.
I would use nurturing, compassionate, accessible.
Profound, inclusive, connecting, beautiful and joyful.
Thank you very much to RADSEC. And I think we're going to have Mia, Uz and Nura joining me for questions. So JB will just be finding people right now. And just a final reminder to put any questions in the chat, but I think everybody knows that by now. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for your project and that fantastic final video. I'm going to start with a question, which is, as you mentioned right at the beginning of that video, that you just weren't seeing everybody in the picture. And what strikes me is that you've brought so many people into the picture. It's amazing. But I wanted to really ask whether or not that was a slow realization, or there was something in particular that sparked the idea to start running the course in the way that you did.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Ruth, for the question. I think it was looking at, so, we're coming from the mental health perspective, coming from Mind, Rainbow Mind, and Mind, City Hackney, Waltham Forest, and Mind in Salford. And so for us, we were seeing these inequalities. There are these, real differences between how people from the LGBTQ plus community were suffering, experiencing these mental health inequalities. So it really felt like there was a need. And so again, it's interesting that you mentioned that themes. There's been these themes through all of these, all the amazing projects here today. But yeah, that was one. Finding where's this need? There's this need here. What can we do about it? What can we provide that is going to, specifically support in that area?
Yeah, great. And then how did that kind of conversation then unfold? Did you start discussing with people within Mind? What is it that we can do, and where did mindfulness start to creep in or come in?
Yes, so we were, through Mind, City Academy, Waltham Forest, we've been, running mindfulness courses and then also mindful self-care courses for, for many years. But it was, as I said, there was something more specific needed. So I think I am going to pass on, because Mia Chambers, who is here, director of Rainbow Mind, has so many amazing skills. One of which is getting people together. So that is, I would say, one of their superpowers is, getting people, like amazing people from, I remember, we'd have meetings where there's, clinical leads, mindfulness practitioners, people with all different strengths and backgrounds, psychologists getting together and, making this happen. So yeah, Mia, it's got to be you. Yeah.
I'm a bit embarrassed now, but yeah, I put an answer also in a chat to some of the questions about how perhaps this course would differ from some like the mindful self-compassion. So just to say, the foundations are from the evidence-based modalities like MBSR, MBCT, MSC, and CFT, compassion focused therapy. And what we wanted to do is look to bring those different sides, the mindfulness and the compassion side, into a contextualized course that would work with, firstly, in our randomized control trial with LGBTQ plus populations, and to be contextualized to their lived experience and the intersections that they might come to the course with, be it their ethnic background and LGBTQ-ness and faith and nationality, etc., and be explicit to hold that combination, if you like, of their existence and their identities in a way that was sensitive and respectful to whatever parts of themselves they wanted to bring to that context to be practicing with mindfulness. And yeah, in terms of how we've come to this, it's been such an evolution of working with different colleagues who represent these different both identities, but also, you know, humanity, and also different services, where we've been looking at mind for almost a decade now in East London. We work with the diversity of the populations that we work with and are part of ourselves. How do we work in a way that really meets them where they are at, and that they can come with all parts of themselves into mindfulness and feel safe? And that's the kind of way in which we work with so many different people, from the kind of us as community members ourselves, and participants in these modalities, as well as then all the way to innovation specialists and city university colleagues in research terms. And for example, Nora is right now developing, as Nora has been running this modality in the recovery substance misuse service, and is also now developing a research project, again overseen by City University, into looking at how this is now contextualized and adapted into working with people with that sort of high sense of shame for, you know, the reasons that we can all kind of think of, which I won't be listing now, why people might feel shame if they have been in that situation, are in that situation. So I don't know if Nora wants to come in, or I don't know, Ruth, if you have other questions.
I guess, yeah, Nora, if you could come in and talk a bit more about this contextualizing and how you sort of adapt the course to bring in the context. Is it about centering the lived experience, and how do you do that? How do you make it explicit as part of the curriculum?
Yeah, it's been a really powerful integration. The Mind already are integrated with the substance misuse, which in and of itself is really fantastic, because they're once again spotting out members of the community that A, desperately need mental health support and psychologically informed intervention, and B, can't access it. So RadSec has been born out of that. And we've adapted it, and the main things that we have adapted are its accessibility. So that's often meant keeping the course focused on few simple and accessible concepts. And kind of one of the main things that we do really drive home around is that mindfulness and that groundedness. So many of the people that I work with have extremely busy minds, and to be honest with you, when I first started delivering RadSec for Recovery, I really didn't know how successful it was going to be to get a group of very active-minded people to sit for an hour and a half and engage with the practices. But I was so proven wrong. The capacity, the innate capacity that everyone has, and when you explain the course to them beforehand as well, there's definitely psychological resistance, but with their goodwill and willingness to kind of show up and give it a go, it's been amazing how well people can take it on and take on that capacity for mindfulness and for kind of grounding work. And just to answer the sort of the practicality question that someone has put in the chat, it's an 8-session course, and the full one would be eight sessions of 2 hours, and we've adapted it to make it an hour and a half. For the RADSEC one, sorry, for the RADSEC for recovery. So yeah, and you know, we really kind of we frame some of the psychoeducational points of it as well in a substance use context to help people understand their responses and behaviors in that specific context. But it's been amazing. It's honestly, it's been so powerful.
Yeah, I know that comes across in the video at the end where you're all summarizing it. I just absolutely love it. All the words that are coming out are just amazing. People have a few more questions about practicalities, but I'm going to ask them to pick them up with you afterwards, if that's all right, because we'll provide your details. So just a final thank you from me for everything that you've done with this course. And like you said, really kind of working with a lot of different populations that wouldn't otherwise have access to the service that you're providing. So just thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for being here and your project and your fantastic video. Okay, back to Menka.
Thank you so much, Ruth and everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Right, I've been talking quite a bit about the many strengths of these projects, and now I want to talk about the shortcomings. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. But there is one criteria against which all of the projects were less strong. And I mean, we were in two minds as to whether to talk about this, but I think in the spirit of openness and learning from each other, I think it's useful to highlight that that area is the long-term sustainability in terms of a funding model or a business model for these projects. And this is obviously really important for deepening and or expanding the offering. And it's also a very common challenge for social innovations, you know, where there's more than one objective, you know, not just financial. And so I guess I just wanted to open this out and to say, you know, maybe some of you watching might have some ideas about this. And in a way, the awards and these films are an invitation, and all of us to, you know, the community of people interested in mindfulness and compassion training, all of us watching, to take inspiration from these projects for our own work, but also to see if there's ways of giving to these projects in terms of strengthening them in whatever small ways we can, you know, through our resources and our connections. And after this event, all of you will get an email in which we'll include the contact details for the 4 finalist project teams. And if you have any questions, you know, that haven't been answered today, but also if you have an invitation for them, or a suggestion or an offer of support, connection, please do follow up with them. I'm sure they really appreciate it. And I'd also like to announce that, I think for the first time officially, that the Mindfulness Initiative is planning to run these awards again. And this will be in 2024. We will evolve things. And so, you know, please do share your feedback with us as well about ways you think this could be better. For example, you know, we may introduce more categories, like to separate out, for example, programs and products, because it's hard to compare. But yeah, if there's any other ideas you have, we are all ears. And in between now and then, over this coming year, you know, in the gap year between now and the awards, we have a few plans for projects that will be in service of this community. And a big part of that is just connecting the diverse range of people interested in this field, you know, innovating and flourishing. So we're talking social entrepreneurs, mindfulness teachers, academics, researchers, artists, business executives, funders, philanthropists. We really are a very small team, but if there are things we can do to facilitate, we want to try. So do keep in touch with us and watch the space. And finally, just to end with a deep bow of gratitude to all of you for being here today in support of the awards and in support of these amazing phenomenal projects, which it's been really wonderful to work with them on making these films, and I'm really pleased with how they've come out and to share them with you all today. I'm sure you've all been as blown away as we have been in this process of getting to know these projects. So thank you.
Yep. Finally, just for me to echo that thanks to everybody, and a thanks in particular to Menka, who's probably watched all of these videos more than anybody else, I think, in terms of preparation for this event and also the editing process. So please don't ignore that call to action that we had at the end. Like Luke said, if you felt something, please don't ignore it. And if you felt that you feel moved to support one of these projects or all of these projects, then please do and follow up when we send out the email. That would be absolutely fantastic. And we will include all of the information we think we're supposed to in that email, but if there's anything else, please do come back to us. And so it's just for me to say a deep thank you to everybody. And if everybody would like to come off mute and say bye-bye in person, that would be nice, just so we don't end with just my voice.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody, fantastic.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deep gratitude.
Thanks, everyone. Such amazing work.
Thank you, everyone. And congratulations, everyone. Keep innovating.